What's the most shocking thing you've ever caught a family member doing? Story 1. This is something I'll never forget. I was in 7th grade, and my older sister was in 9th. She was having a bunch of friends from school over. I thought I'd be hilarious, and hide in her closet before they got to her room with the intention of popping out and scaring them. So I'm in the closet just waiting, and my sister comes in the room with about 4 or 5 of her friends. They are all just talking for a few minutes, and I start to get bored. I decide it's time to make my move. I jump out, and I see something I had never seen in person. Breasts. Breasts everywhere. My sister and all of her friends are standing or sitting around topless and in their panties. I couldn't believe it. They all covered up and yelled at me to get out. Don't ever let girls try to tell you they don't do this when they hang out. I've seen it with my own eyes. Edit, I don't know what my sister and her friends were into, but it appears no other female on this thread finds my story reasonable. All I know is, I saw breasts. Edit, I just realized, the first time I saw breasts in real life was about 6 sets at once, but included my sister. Worth it? Story 2. Called a phone SX line in the days before internet, and fell asleep. I was about 13 or so. Couple weeks later my uncle got a phone bill for $1,400. My great-grandaunt found out, she was about 77, and phoned me and told me the following, "Holy shit boy, you could have just called me and I would have talked dirty to you for free." I never called a phone SX line again. Story 3. My brother and I started riding with my dad when we were 8 and 10. We would follow him around the desert and whatnot and mimic what he would do. Until one day he went and did what you described, so naturally being the 10-year-old stuntman I started to stand on my seat. Right when I got both feet up on my PW80 my dad hit a patch of sand and got squirrely with it and ended up launching. He landed pretty hard and needless to say that was when our outing stopped that day. The best part is my dad is sort of a hard ass so he led the way back to the truck while we followed and began loading up the truck. Once everything had been packed away and the bikes tied down we made our way home. I notice my dad hasn't taken off one of his gloves and I mention it to him, he doesn't say anything about it. When we get home he tells me and my brother to unload everything. After we are done we find him in the backyard laying on the cool deck around our pool with his hand in the pool laughing like a lunatic. Mom gets home and wants to know just what the buck is going on, so me and my brother fill her in on the whole story. Her and my dad go inside and start to argue and next thing I know they are gone. Fast forward 4 hours and they are back home. Only my dad has a cast starting from his hand going nearly all the way up to his shoulder. Turns out he shattered the ball in his wrist, broke several fingers and just all around bucked his shit up. TLDR your dad is a better stuntman than mine. Story 4. Friend just cooked hot wings for everyone. After dinner, go to find him to see if he needs help cleaning up. Walk in on him on all fours dunking his balls into a cup of water. I've never looked at a red Solo cup the same way again. Story 5. My father and I were sitting in the family room watching television when my little brother came downstairs from taking a shower wrapped in a towel. He sat down on the sofa, unwrapped the towel, and proceeded to start fapping like it was nobody's business. To be fair, he was too young to realize it was a Sewell thing, and had no clue he shouldn't do it in front of other people. My dad looked over and said, "Don't ever let me see you do that again," and went right back to watching TV. Story 6. Walked in on my sister eating dog food. Out of the dog bowl. On all fours. And when she saw me, she crawled away with her head down. She wasn't a kid either. She was 15. Story 7. I was about 3 years old when I first walked in on my parents going at it. I remember walking in there, seeing my dad. At the time I was so young that I didn't know what they were doing. He saw me walk in, turned to my mom and said, "Let's just keep going, he won't remember this or know what we're doing." Well, guess what, Dad? That was one of the very few things I remember as a little kid. Story 8. Cleaning up my grandfather's stuff after he passed away. Found a bunch of unlabeled floppy disks and thought I should check to see if anything important was on them. Each one contained like a 30-second clip of gay corn. I was absolutely shocked. Who uses a floppy disk for corn? Story 9. My best friend asked me to help her fix her mom's laptop, which had half a screen of toolbars when the browser was open, etc. The best friend was poking around opening files, and right as I said, we can just scan all of them instead, a pic of her mom naked with 2 dildos crammed in her ass pops up. This woman, her mom, practically raised me. The image is burned into my retina. Story 10. When I was 14 or 15, I had just gotten in bed and was trying to fall asleep when I heard a strange sound. After a moment, I realized it was my mother moaning. She was in the basement masturbating, and there happened to be a vent right by her which led up to my room. The vent let the sound travel right up to me, which she obviously never realized. So I basically laid there in bed for about 15 minutes listening to my mom masturbate. Simply put, it was horrifying. If you made it this far, please consider pressing the subscribe and like button. Now continue to the video. Story 11. I was 5 and had a bad dream, so I walked in on my parents mid-doggy style. My dad leapt from the floor to the bed and my mom just got up and pretended I didn't see anything. Totally forgot why I walked in for. Then when I was 18, my parents had passed away from a boating accident when I was 17, so my older brother and I were left to look after my little twin sisters who were 11. Anyways, my little sisters learned the flute in school and had their first band concert, so I was trying to find a mini DV tape to record over for their concert. I ended up finding my parents' SX tape. Nothing is worse than finding your dead parents' SX tape. Story 12. Came home one time, saw my dad's naked but disappearing up the stairs at great speed. Saw playing cards and a pile of clothes strewn all over room. We never spoke of it, and I can only conclude he was losing hard at strip solitaire. Story 13. Was working at a summer camp. With my sister. Counselors slept in cabins, but on their days off they could get a room in a different building that was more like a dormitory. One time I had a day off and didn't go home. I wandered into this dorm and started looking for a free room to sleep in. First room, 2 girls making out. Second room, dude and a girl on it. Third room, my sister, relaxing in an armchair and reading the goddamn dictionary. I sat down next to her and read Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell. Neither of us commented on the noises coming through the walls. Later, I went for a walk. She just read the dictionary all day long. Story 14. I came across my parents' corno tape with someone else filming them when trying to look for videos of my family's past vacation. Also accidentally opened a package thinking it was mine. I was 15. I ordered under my mom's credit card, only to find out it was a package filled of dildos. My mom quickly called right after I ripped open the package ordering not to touch it. Story 15. Catching your dad masturbating is shocking no matter how many times it happens. Also, someone should make a tutorial for grown men to learn how to hide their tracks of looking at corn. Story 16. This isn't that shocking by today's standards, but I was at an arts and sciences summer camp, 2-week sleepover camp. We'd stay in dorms, in this case at the U of Maryland. I was probably around 11 at the time, mid-late 90s, and at this camp they had us take classes and forced you to take part in both art and science, and being the nerd I am, I tried to avoid taking any art. They threw me into a drawing class, 8 to 14-year-olds, which was bearable simply because we had an extremely eccentric guy in charge. He'd tell us to draw whatever the hell we felt like and would encourage us to keep with it, regardless of how shitty it came out. On the last day of camp, he simply came in with a huge 10-foot by 10-foot piece of paper and said to us, "I want each of you to draw the most disgusting and perversely sual things you can possibly think of. Make it absurd. Make it weird. Your parents nor the camp directors will never see this. Go wild." So we did. Never in my life had I seen so much drawn blood combined with ejaculate. I saw monkeys masturbating onto old men. I saw breasts sliced off and worn as hats, and I saw women impaling their heads on their own dicks. The teacher took it home and he wasn't at the camp the following summer. Story 17. My brother had been in the bathroom for hours. He was like 4. We finally told him we were coming with or without his permission. We get in there, and there are little plastic army men everywhere. Everywhere. I know it doesn't sound very shocking compared to some of the stories here, but they were everywhere. We have no idea how he reached some of the spots where the army men were. They were in the corner of the shower, in the fan, balancing on the light fixtures. It just didn't make sense. He even managed to lift the back of the toilet and put them in there. He didn't have any kind of explanation, it was very weird. He used like 2 buckets of army men. It took a few weeks before we managed to find them all. Story 18. Not my family member, but I was there, and I've posted this story a few times already. When I was 14, I went with my girlfriend to her best friend's birthday party. When it was time for cake, the friend went to get her little sister, who had decided to be antisocial and stay in her room. My girlfriend went along as well, and since she was my only link to being there, I followed. The 11-year-old little sister was having sex with their dog. Story 19. I was about 5 years old when I woke up in the middle of the night due to some weird noises. I looked down to the floor for the source of the noise, and there was my father having sex with my stepmother on a mattress, loudly right beside my bed. At the time I was oblivious of such activities, so naturally, I asked that what are they doing? My dad said that he was doing push-ups and she was counting them and cheering him on, and they just went on with it. I thought that it seemed about right and went back to sleep thinking nothing of it. Oh, the horror when I had learned what sex is and much later remembered this incident out of the blue. Story 20. Let me start by saying I was a very naive child for the first 5 or 6 years of my life. I had heard from someone in my kindergarten class in my very Catholic school that being gay meant that you stood up to pee. My older sister and her husband were over for a family party and I had to use the bathroom. Her husband was already in there. He didn't lock the door. I shut the door quick and ran to my room. I spent the next few hours trying to figure out how to tell my sister her husband was gay. I didn't know what gay even was, except it was supposed to be bad and standing up to pee meant you had it. I worked up the courage and told her, and she told me it was okay. He wasn't gay. The next thing I heard was hilarious laughter from everyone in the yard. It was quite a few years before anyone even gave me the correct information. Story 21. I was at my girlfriend's house today watching Free Willy on TV in the living room. Her dad, who is 60-something BTW, was derping around on the internets. Suddenly my girlfriend grabs my arm and points to her dad, just 10 feet from us in plain view, watching corn on the computer. He's an older gentleman, and I believe we witnessed his first experience with the internet's primary use. He was so innocently perplexed, like a child sipping his first juice box. Story 22. Story. Got caught wanking the first time I ever wanked. Mom walked away. Got caught wanking the second time I ever wanked. Mom walked away. Got caught wanking the third time I ever wanked. Mom paused and said, "I'm very disappointed in you." 23. Kinda on the subject. When I was 16, I went over my friend's house, and we both jacked off to his mom's sex tape, no blanket separating us or anything. Also, caught my dad jacking off once. That's shocking, but not too crazy. That was also the day I learned my dad had a huge cock. Finally, when I was 17, I started getting into some pretty bucked up corn. Eventually, my mom caught on to what I was looking at after I got lazy and didn't clear the history. One day she looked at me and said to me, "I've seen what you look at, and you are going to hell." Story 24. I will describe a few things my cousin did. I didn't catch him doing them, but they're strange nonetheless. One, he had guinea pigs for 2 days, after which they died. He buried them in a plastic ice cream container. He would dig them up several times a year to see how far they had decayed. Frequently, he would surprise friends he brought over with the container. 2. We live near the ocean. A ferry service services a nearby wharf. This ferry is sometimes booked for weddings. My cousin was jumping off the wharf naked when the ferry came alongside with a wedding party. My cousin started turning naked somersaults in the water so he could expose his ballsack and asshole. 3 across the road from the beach there is a large park. One evening there was a Christian youth group playing soccer. My cousin asked the leaders if he could play. He looked pretty normal initially, shirtless, with towel around the waist. Once they said he could play, he stripped off the towel, revealing his lime green G-string. He then ran through all the Christians and lay on the ball and started gyrating against it. For we went on a whitewater rafting trip with our families once when we were about 7. There were several families and couples on the trip. One guy in particular my cousin fixated on. He was with his recently married wife. So, for 5 days straight my cousin called him nothing but Merlin and challenged him to magical duels, asked him about dragons, spells, demons, King Arthur, etc. He was about 7 at the time. Merlin wanted to kill him at the end of it. 5 I once found him masturbating to pictures of fat, old women. He was totally nonchalant about it. I reckon he would have finished right there had I stayed. Story 25. My best friend lived with my family for 18 months when we were in grade 4 because his dad was on trial for molesting his sister. At least 6 times I walked in on him and my older brother performing an interesting blowjob 69 type deal. They got more and more chalant about it until one night they were doing it in my bed and my parents walked in. Awkwardest week in my house ever. Funny story, now they are both some of the most homophobic people I know and I'm gay. Story 26. Damn it. I am way too late to this party. I have been waiting for this kind of thread to tell this story. I hope someone sees it. I was 8. My brother 6. I had a friend, 10 years, who had a brother 12 years. They also had a sister 5 or 6 years. Their oldest bro had just learned about sex through the sex ed class at school. Who told the younger brother, who in turn told the younger sister. She proceeds to let my brother in on it. Note, through the process of telephone many key elements were lost in the process. Me and my 10-year-old friend walked past the laundry room in our apartment complex a few days after, and what do we find? My little brother, butt-ass naked, on top of his butt-ass naked little sister, humping like a bucking madman. This was no child's play. This was as hardcore as you can imagine. My little bro was going to town. Like Peter bucking north. Now, I doubt it was erect. And I doubt he actually penetrated. But man, the kid had heart. He was dominating that little girl. Of this, I am not exactly proud. I was kind of disgusted, as it was my first time ever seeing anything of the sort. My friend and I just stared in disgusted awe. WTF are we watching? After about a minute of watching this, what happens? My mother comes to get the clothes she was washing out of the washer. Me and my friend hightail it around the corner. She walks in on a cornstar in the making and proceeds to flip her bucking lid, as any normal person should do. My brother got his ass beat. We got in trouble. Couldn't hang out for like 2 months. After our grounding, when we were finally allowed back outside again to play with our friends, my little bro was back at it. He was caught 3 different times with that girl over the summer and preceding months. Doing the same shit. He swore up and down that SHE talked him into it each time. A few months after that, he was caught by our apartment manager with his dick in the daughter's mouth. That's right, the daughter of the apartment manager. Remember, this kid was 6 when it started, 7 at this point. No one ever believes this shit when I tell it. But I swear on bacon and narwhals that this is the honest truth. He still grins like a bucking clown every time I bring it up. Hope you see this, bro. Your secret is out.